Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. Now, I've had the Astra EV as my Hendy Group long-termer for quite a while now, and it's a little bit overdue me doing a video on it, but there is a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, the car was off the road for over a week with a couple of punctures, but there's plenty to talk about this car. There was a huge amount of comments when I did my swap from my Land Rover Defender 90 into the Astra EV. Very, very different vehicles, I know, but actually, there's quite a lot to like about that car. You'd be surprised. Brr, it's very chilly today. So let's talk Astra, shall we? Now I have a bit of a litmus test, and that is until I wash a car, I don't feel I can really get underneath its skin. And I washed this car for the first time at the weekend because it was properly minging, lots and lots of winter grime all over it. And this colour, it's called cobalt blue. It's a tri-coat metallic paintwork, and it just pops when it's clean. And I think it works so well on this car, especially with the black grille details. I'm really digging this whole front end design language that we see on new Vauxhalls. There's this, and it's very similar on the new Corsa as well. I think the front end of this car just looks mega. I like the back, but front is my favourite view by miles. So colour-wise, loving the colour of this car with the black roof, and I just think it makes it look really stylish. Now, it is quite difficult as we've come out of Defender into Astra, two very, very different vehicles. We've gone from a diesel-powered 4x4 to an electric-powered hatch. But there are some things in here that strike you straight away. So this Ultimate spec has a beautiful interior. It's very comfortable, very well equipped. It's just a nice place to do a journey. And because it's an electric powertrain, it's quiet and it's smooth and it's relaxing. We haven't done a really long trip in it yet. We've done plenty of miles, but we haven't done a long journey. We had planned to do a long journey to the Cotswolds a couple of weeks ago, but we had a bit of an issue that meant we couldn't. Now, I don't know what the roads are like round your neck of the woods, but round here they are utterly shocking at the moment. There are potholes, but actually on some of the roads we've gone beyond potholes. They're crevasses almost. They are proper wheel eaters. Now, this car's actually shod with Michelin E-Primacy tyres, which are a brilliant tyre, especially for this time of year, and they are brilliant for rolling resistance and efficiency. But they aren't immune to a big pothole, and unfortunately a couple of weeks ago Tracy was driving and hit a nasty pothole that was covered in water, and the front tyre deflated, and by the time the car came to rest, the sidewall had basically been shredded and had a hole in it, so completely knackered the front tyre. And then the rear tyre deflated within a few hours, so that was done as well. So we had to have the car recovered back to Hendy's, and then we just spent a bit of time trying to get hold of the right tyre specification and so on. So that took a bit of time. So the car was off the road for about a week, and that's just a frustration, and I'm sure many of you may well have had a similar issue. We were lucky though, the tyres were needing to be replaced, but both wheels survived. And that's the challenge, I guess, when you hit such a big pothole, big enough to actually take a tyre out. The challenge is that you damage the alloy. You either buckle it or you crack it. So we've now got new tyres back on again, back on the road. But that did stop us going to the Cotswolds, which would have taken us on a journey that would have gone towards the range of the car. So the big question is, what range are we getting? Now, this car has a 54 kilowatt hour battery pack, and Vauxhall quote 258 miles, or sorry, up to 258 miles of range. Now, the temperatures this week, they're not freezing, but they're not warm either. And on a 100% full battery, this car's indicating just over 250 miles, about 254 miles actually. So at the moment, this car is delivering what Vauxhall say it should. Now, unfortunately, I've got the key in my pocket and I keep moving to and from the car and it keeps opening and locking itself. But anyway, let's not go there. So actually, range-wise, we have been pleasantly surprised. And that's based on our driving history and how we've been driving the car. And Tracy does have a very heavy right foot. So I'm quite impressed with that. I was going to be happy with anything over 200 miles. But the fact that on a full charge we're getting 250 miles, I think I'm happy with that. Very, very good. Now, practicality-wise, is this car as practical as a Defender 90? I wonder. Now, one of our favourite things to do in the entire world is to take the dogs for a walk on the beach. And we've got a season ticket at West Wittering Beach, which is only, I don't know, 20 minutes or so from the house. And the girls fit in here just perfectly. Now, I've left them inside because it's freezing. But yeah, this boot space, it's not the biggest boot in the world, but I think for this size of car, it's fair enough. And it's perfect for what we need. It's perfect for the dogs. You put normally we've got kind of towels in here. With the seats dropped, I haven't tried to put my bike in there yet, but it's a very, very simple, practical, easy to use car. And we love that about it, to be honest. Really do. So, we do like the interior of this car. These seats are really comfy on a longer trip. There's lots of nice materials. I'm not massively blown away by the central console. I think my challenge with it is, and I've just had a Peugeot 308 station wagon press car literally picked up this morning, and it had exactly the same controls. And that's a Peugeot and this is a Vauxhall. And I think the challenge that Stellantis have as a group is that clearly they are sharing platforms to reduce costs, to be able to make cars more efficiently and therefore make better margins and so on, be more profitable as a business. And I totally get that. My challenge with it though is you suddenly lose the individuality that different brands have. Because I sit in this car and in the years gone by, I'd sit in it and go, I'm in a Vauxhall. And then I'd go and sit in a Peugeot and go, I'm in a Peugeot. And my problem now is I sit in this car and go, oh, I'm in a Vauxhall because the badge there says Vauxhall, but I was sat in a Peugeot last week and the gear selector was exactly the same as that. And I think that's a big shame. And when you see vehicles from other brands that are bucking that trend, that are being individual, whether that's recently I was in the new Renault 5 electric, and that is just so Renault and so different to anything else out there. Or you take a look at the interior of the new Mini. And I think that for me is a challenge with the companies or the brands that fall under that Stellantis banner. I understand it, but I'm not so sure it's the right way to go. But yeah, don't get me wrong, all the driving controls work and it's fine. This touch screen, and you've got some real buttons there for things like climate control and heated seats and heated steering wheel. So I can interact with things with a button rather than a touch screen, and I like that very much. So yeah, the interior we've liked a great deal. Next thing we need to just quickly go out for a drive, and I'll talk you through the things that we've got our heads around in terms of this car and its drive. But actually, for the use profile that we're using it for, it's perfect. So here we are out driving. It's actually nearly 3 weeks later. I had a bit of a problem. So I filmed the first part of the video, and then the plan was to do the driving parts the next day. And unfortunately, the next day we had a puncture. So it transpires that I don't think one of the wheels was quite right, and the tyre deflated, and by the time we realised the tyre had deflated, we'd only driven literally to the gate at our house, but because we got a shingly drive, it destroyed the tyre and I needed to get another tyre. So I got another tyre. I took the tyre and the wheel to my local tyre fitters, and unfortunately the wheel had a buckle in it. That meant it wasn't really any good putting the tyre on. So that was just before I went to Japan. So I went to Japan, came back from Japan, got the tyre or the wheel repaired, and got the wheel and tyre back yesterday. So we're now able to do the driving part of the video. So this car's actually been off the road for not that far off of 4 weeks in my tenure, which is a real pain because it's meant I haven't driven it as much as I would like. But let's put that to one side and all of my issues, and that'll serve me right for, in a podcast episode not that long ago, I made some comment about the fact that we don't get very many punctures anymore, and just suck it up when that happens. Well, I've had 3 in this car and it's been an absolute nightmare. In terms of driving, I've mentioned about the range already. That for most EV potential buyers is a really big thing. How much miles are you going to get out of a full charge? This car delivers really well, and it's not like we're hypermiling or anything. I'm currently just in the standard drive mode, and that's pretty much the mode that I've been in and drive around quite a lot. Either that or sport mode, because we're not doing long journeys. I don't mind driving around in sport mode. It gives a slightly sharper throttle, a little bit more engagement, more fun while you're driving, and it doesn't matter so much that you're going to use a bit of the battery up, because you just get home and plug it on your charger when you get home. So, you know, initial drive modes, I haven't really used eco mode a great deal. It does deaden things off quite a lot, but as I've said, normal driving, I've just been using normal. You've got a little drive mode selected just here. In fact, let's drop it up from normal up into sport, give it a bit of zip for when we get out of this 30-mile-an-hour limit. The dials change red. You can instantly feel a sharper throttle. Yes, much more like it. Okay, here we go. So, it's actually got quite a sporty response, this car, and once you get up to speed, it's got a really nice feel to it. It's a very relaxing car to drive. The seats are very comfortable, the driving position's very good, and actually when you're driving, all of the controls that you need, the controls that are mounted on the steering wheel, so kind of cruise control and speed limiter on the left, and your infotainment systems and stereo controls on the right, they're really easy to use. You've got a nice set of buttons, as I've mentioned already, underneath the main display, which just makes things really easy to use. I've used Apple CarPlay all the time I've really had the car. I haven't used the native infotainment system that much, but when you do start to exploit the car and push on a little bit, it just has a nice feeling to it. The suspension's quite relaxed and soaks up the bumps. Clearly it's a bit of a pothole hunter, this car, because it keeps hitting potholes and getting punctures. It's not, though, it's not the sportiest of cars, but I've kind of mentioned this a couple of times in cars I've driven recently, is that for many people, especially in this target market of car, this is a family car. I can imagine it's going to do the school run quite a lot. You want to do longer journeys. The way you get that 250 miles from such a relatively small battery, is under 60 kilowatt hours, is by backing the power and the torque off a little bit, backing the sporty nature of the car off a little bit, and heading towards a more efficient car rather than a more sport oriented car. And for me, that kind of makes sense, because this is still, it's not a slow car. If you compared it to a petrol car of, oh, I don't know, 15 years ago, it would probably have, you know, the kind of performance credentials of a mediumly hot hatch. So, you know, it's just that we've gone down this horsepower hunting 0 to 60 time trophy cabinet thing, and I honestly, for most people, really don't think it's that necessary. But it's quick enough. The only time you might be found wanting is when you come into that overtake scenario where you've got a car that's in front that's not going super slow, maybe it's doing 50-55 miles an hour and you want to get past it. At that point, that for me is when a really powerful, really quickly accelerating car comes into its own, because you can get past the car in front as quickly as possible. You're in the danger area for as little time as possible. And that for me, when you're in a car that's not quite got that zip, that's the main time that you really notice it. Let's take it down one of my favourite bits of road. Sadly, the weather's decided to not play ball today. It's just started to rain. But you know, it's a nice feeling car. You know, it's got a nice bit of steering to it. I mentioned already the practicality of bloody pheasant again. I don't know what it is. As soon as I put cameras on a car, all the pheasants start coming out. It's been a brilliantly practical car for us. We've not actually had passengers in the back, I don't think, but the boot's a really good size. We've had the dogs to the beach this morning, and there's plenty of room in the boot, and that for me makes this car a really interesting proposition. It's an interesting one because when I knew I was getting it, I didn't dislike the styling, but I wasn't kind of, you know, I wasn't super excited. But to be brutally honest, it has surprised both Tracy and myself. We've really liked our time with the car. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of that time taken away because it's literally been sat in the garage, either at Hendy's waiting for tyres, or literally sat in my garage with blocks of wood under it while the wheel was being fixed. So there's been quite a lot of off-the-road time. But when you do get it down a nice bit of road, it's a nice car to drive. It really is. Price point wise, I think the challenge with a lot of cars at this price point is at the moment there seems to be a bit of a turn away from EV, and maybe people are looking at used models, or they may be looking at not going down the EV route at the moment, seeing what happens, maybe buying a petrol car or a hybrid maybe. So I think that the price point of this car is probably a little bit high for some, but I'm sure there are deals to be had. This is a top spec one, so you know it's got all the boxes ticked, all of the options on it, and you can feel it because it feels like a premium, a premium product in here. Last bit of driving mode I should probably talk about. I've talked about the different drive modes. I'm in sport currently, but there is a B button there for regenerative braking, and it's not the most aggressive regen braking I've ever driven in an EV, and there aren't paddles behind the steering wheel to allow you to change how aggressive that regen braking is. But so I tend to find myself driving in B mode quite a lot. You can just lift off and retard the car a little bit, but it's not as severe as something like a Mustang Mach-E or a Tesla that have really quite severe, almost in some cases too severe one pedal driving. This is just nice, just backs it off a little bit. I've got an indicator on the dash saying I'm going into charge mode, and I'll start to recuperate some of that kinetic energy back into the battery pack. So final thoughts on the car in terms of an all-electric platform. It's really quite nice to be driving an electric vehicle that's not an SUV. It's a hatchback format. I like that a lot. I really like the Astra Estate that I drove, or they call it the Sport Tourer. So if you wanted a little bit more practicality, a little bit more luggage space, maybe you'd go for the Sport Tourer model, and I think that looks really nice from the outside. So it is nice to be driving a kind of, you know, hatch format EV, and it is a good EV. I like the fact that it delivers on the range front. It kind of delivers on the performance front, as long as you're not expecting, you know, a Model S Plaid or anything. It's quick enough. It's perky enough down a B road to put a smile on your face, and you can enjoy the drive. If you're in sport mode, you've got enough throttle response. Let me just accelerate out of here, foot flat to the floor. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, and you're at the speed limit. It's good. Guys, I'd love to know what you think of the Astra EV. I am a bit gutted that some of the plans I had for this car just weren't possible, because a combination of me being really busy and not being around, and then when I was around, the car wasn't, because it had some issues. It's the first long-termer I've had where it's just been plagued. I think there's maybe slightly jinxed. It's been really annoying, kind of, you know, oh no, I've got another puncture. But yeah, so top tip for you is keep an eye out for potholes, because there's lots and lots around here. The local authority are fixing a few of them, but it's not so bad now when it's dry. But we had lots and lots of heavy rain for a long period of time, and there were a few roads around here that had constant standing water, and underneath that standing water were nasty potholes, and they were the kind of potholes that eat alloy wheels, unfortunately. So yes, a good long-termer. It goes back this week coming, and that's why I kind of needed to get this video done in the time I have had. So it goes back, I swap out for my next long-termer. I cannot wait to share that one with you. Hopefully that will be this coming Friday's video, if all goes to plan. And I think you're going to enjoy it, because I know I am. It's a very special car. If you can guess what you think I'm getting, put it in the comments below, and also let me know what you think of the Astra. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have done, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come, and I'll see you on the next video. You take care, guys. Drive safe.